You're listening to the Tony Kinnett Cast on 93 WYPC.
WCYTV
Here on the Daily Signal.
Good evening and welcome to the Tony Kinnett Cast here on the Daily Signal, nationally syndicated first on 93 WIBC. It's good to be with you, and just in time, too. We were getting this show ready up until the last minute because the news will not stop. If I ever sleep, that will be a piece of news in and of itself. So let's get right to it here. Dr. Kevin O'Connor, Biden's physician, has been dragged kicking and screaming to the floor of the House Oversight Committee for a closed-door hearing today. And what we have from video, which, again, kind of defeats a little bit of the purpose of the closed-door hearing, is Dr. Kevin O'Connor saying that he's just going to plead the fifth. Again, they have questions about Joe Biden, about whether Kevin O'Connor participated in the cover-up of Biden's decline, the auto pen scandal, who in the bleep was running this country for the last couple of years. And Kevin O'Connor had this to say. Here's right from the Oversight Committee's live stream.
Dr. O'Connor, before we begin, I would like to go over the ground rules for this deposition. The committee will conduct today's deposition in accordance with the House of Representatives regulations for the use of deposition authority, which were furnished to your counsel. This regulation is incorporated into the rules of the Committee on Oversight and Government Reform at Rule 15, which was also furnished to your counsel. The questioning will proceed in rounds. The majority will ask questions for an hour, and then the minority will have an opportunity to ask questions for an hour if they choose. There will be one staff counsel per side asking the questions during each round. To the extent members have questions for the witness, they will be propounded during their side's respective rounds.
So again, this is normal. Comer basically says, here are the ground rules. Here's what we're going to do. These are the rules we're going to play by, which, by the way, to make this explicitly clear, this is not uncommon given the members of the Oversight Committee that act a little foolishly, like Jasmine Crockett, our favorite representative crackhead from down in Texas. There are no shortage of fist fights thrown, in the verbal sense at least, over on that Oversight Committee floor. So he's laying the ground rules. You have Dr. Kevin O'Connor, looking like he just climbed out of a locker he was shoved into, sitting there. And here's the part that I should say it is of worth to pay attention to.
You understand?
On the advice of counsel, I must respectfully decline to answer based on the physician-patient privilege and reliance on my right under the Fifth Amendment of the Constitution. I am not a lawyer, and I must follow my lawyer's advice in this matter. So,
a couple of things here. He says, first of all, I can't testify because that violates patient-doctor confidentiality, otherwise known as HIPAA. Number two, I cannot tell you things because my lawyers are telling me to plead the Fifth Amendment. And then finally, last but certainly not least, I am not a lawyer, so I have to do what my legal counsel is telling me, which, of the ways to say that I am going to follow my lawyer's advice, that is certainly a take.
So, gentlemen, we intend to assert both privileges with regard to any questions that would be asked at this deposition. And Dr. O'Connor will not answer any questions.
Can we go off the record for 1 second?
And then we don't find out what that particular off-the-record comment is or what was said. It doesn't sound like there was anything. Later on, the media did try to catch him heading out, and then, of course, you got the no-comment treatment. Not unexpected, but nevertheless, here's the video of it.
Dr. O'Connor, how did that Excuse me.
Will you make any comments to press, sir?
Do you have a message for the committee?
No comments at all, of course. Okay, so a couple of things here. First of all, regarding the patient confidentiality thing, no. The question at hand regards the president's mental and physical fitness. If there is a consideration that a crime has been violated, HIPAA may be set aside. That's true. HIPAA is not like attorney-client privilege. Like if I tell my doctor something, like for example, if I tell my doctor, hey, I'm going to commit suicide, your doctor does not have to keep that close to the chest. That's not a thing. That's not how HIPAA works. He then files that in conjunction with the Fifth Amendment, which is to keep one from self-incrimination. Now, James Comer jumped on this immediately on X afterward. He said, quote, President Biden, Joe Biden's physician, Dr. Kevin O'Connor, just pleaded the fifth at his deposition before Congress today. It is now clear there was a conspiracy to cover up Biden's cognitive decline after Dr. Kevin O'Connor, Biden's physician and family business associate, remember that, refused to answer any questions and chose to hide behind the Fifth Amendment. He then says the American people demand transparency. Congress must assess legislative solutions to prevent such a cover-up from happening again. We will continue to interview more Biden White House aides to get the answers Americans deserve. Okay, so number one, the House does not have to take this. The House does not have to take this. Representative James Comer, and you will likely see something in the next couple of days in which you might find something from the Trump administration challenging at least the HIPAA suggestion here. The Fifth Amendment doesn't really work here either, because this is a question about whether or not an individual was asked to violate the law. The Fifth Amendment doesn't apply there. If I was asked to commit a crime and then I say, I'm going to plead the Fifth, that doesn't apply. It's to whether or not, if someone asks me, did you commit a crime? Then I don't have to answer that, because then Fifth Amendment, I could be found liable for what is essentially a confession. But O'Connor here's pleading the Fifth doesn't make sense. I mean, unless it was O'Connor actively participating in the actual scam here. So we got to look at O'Connor's history and behavior. This is where things get absolutely wild. Again, the reason I showed up to this stream out of breath is because we were running around like chickens with our heads cut off, because a series of articles reveals that the business associate side of Dr. Kevin O'Connor, which the media always portrayed during the Biden administration as, well, he's just the family physician. It's just probably someone they assigned from Walter Reed Medical Center. They have a couple of doctors waiting in the wings, and they say, excuse me, Lucerne, would you call Dr. O'Connor? Sorry, a little Catch Me If You Can reference there. Then they call Dr. O'Connor in, and yeah, you're assigned to Biden, take a few minutes to get to know each other, and then you're going to be the president's physician. Oh, no. Biden has known O'Connor for a long diggity dang time. So O'Connor, who graduated from St. Bonaventure University with a major in biology and a minor in theology. I didn't realize how much I had in common with this individual, except, I have a spine. Then he went through ROTC, and he got acquainted with the Biden family. Here's where things get a little bit dicey. In June of 2017, this is according to Politico, Jim Biden, so that would be Joe Biden's brother, met with Beverly Anarumo, president of a hospital in Elwood City, Pennsylvania, to essentially decide that AmeriCorps, this organization, would soon acquire, according to a list of emails included in a cache of internal AmeriCorps documents from Politico, this strange, what would you say it would be, producer Nick? They acquired like a series of like cancer proceedings, like a mouthwash thing. What was it they were acquiring here?
There was some sort of promise going on between the Biden Cancer Association that had been founded, the nonprofit, to promote the mouthwash that had supposed cancer patient benefits.
So according to separate investigations from ABC and Politico, as well as one other, I think the New York Times, the good old Kevin O'Connor was the go-between between the Biden family, who also Kevin told them, hey, if you have any medical issues, you just come see me, wink, wink, nudge, nudge. And Biden's other family members have testified this. O'Connor went to AmeriCorps and essentially agreed to a $600,000 payment to Biden to promote this anti-cancer mouthwash during Biden's presidential run in like 2020, which is bonkers. Now, here's where things get fun. Biden doesn't fulfill the promise. AmeriCorps then sues the Bidens and ends up getting back, was it $400,000 or $200,000 of this?
AmeriCorps was given back $300,000-ish.
Given back $300,000. Thank you. This is why having producer Nick, I understand why Joe Rogan has Jamie. I do. It's nice. So in this particular instance, here's where things get wild. According to a document revealed by the Oversight Committee, they have a check cut from the Bidens to Kevin O'Connor for $200,000 around that time. Meaning that essentially O'Connor is agreeing to act as this kind of go-between, taking money on behalf of medical organizations to endorse the Biden family and administrations, then of course exchanging that good old political capital that Biden was known for with things like Ukraine, China, Burisma, etc. And then would turn around, and if things got backed out, then Kevin O'Connor still was compensated. Now, here's the catch. Quote, this is from Politico. Last year, 2 medical services firms jointly sued James Biden and his business partners in federal court in Tennessee, alleging that James and his partners, Kevin O'Connor, promised to provide a large investment from the Middle East, then pushed the firms to make expensive acquisitions as part of a scheme to drive them out of business and steal their business models. This is how AmeriCorps ended up getting that $300,000 back. This is from ABC. Sorry, I know we're keeping the radio crew a little bit longer than we're supposed to, but this is important. The 2 men grew close when Biden asked O'Connor to consult on end-of-life care for his mother, who passed away in 2010. Their bond deepened, friends said, and when Biden's son, Beau Biden, was later diagnosed with cancer, through those trying moments, the 2 men forged a brotherly trust that remains in place today, according to a current administration official who worked for Biden during the Obama administration. This goes on with the New York Times. We'll talk about this soon. I'll sum this up for the radio crew before we send him over to commercial. I'll explain a little bit more then on the live stream. Kevin O'Connor has been Biden's do whatever you need me to fixer on the medical side of things for decades, at least 1 decade. And now we're supposed to think that, I'm going to plead on the 5th. That's why he pled the 5th. O'Connor's hands are filthy in this. And of course, that sounds like an obvious thing, but the smoking gun is here. Radio crew will catch you in just a second. It's the Tony Kinnett Cast. What do you got, producer Nick?
The huge thing there with the check to Joe Biden was that was included in a letter from James Comer, to O'Connor in a previous attempt to secure more information about that shady business dealing with James Biden.
Got you. So in case you were wondering, why does this all matter? Why are we talking about this before everything else? The theme of the show, essentially, and we don't really try to theme out the shows. We just try to bring out the news and some analysis. The theme of this show in particular is that no one wants to talk. No one wants to talk. The problem with conspiracies is that humans are horrible at keeping things secret. They're terrible at it. They are terrible at it. I govern a lot of my political philosophy from what's called Watergate theory, that 14 guys in whose best interest it was, when no one else knew, no one else could have known, was to shut their mouths about the Watergate scandal, could not keep it a secret for, they say 2 weeks. The first leaks came out about 3 days after the call took place, or the call tapping took place. So in my basic analysis, according to pattern psychology, which is a former science teacher, something I'm rather obsessed with, if an individual is part of a conspiracy, secrets are very, 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 very hard to keep. And as we found from Anthony Fauci during COVID, as we have found out through Biden's business dealings in the past, it's all right there. Some of the details take a little while to come out. Essentially, what does this mean for the House? James Comer should hold Kevin O'Connor in inherent contempt. And when someone is held in inherent contempt, there is a special little jail cell below the U.S. Capitol that has not been used in a while, in which case an individual will sit until they agree to testify before Congress. You say, well, what grounds would they have? There is reason to believe that Kevin O'Connor has participated in the criminal cover-up of Joe Biden directly. In the best case, you can say that he was just willing to do whatever he wanted through prior business connections. At the worst, you can directly assert, and I want to make this clear, directly assert without really any legal hoop jumping here or rope jumping here, that Kevin O'Connor was one of the primary people making decisions for the President of the United States, and at least should have been approved by the Senate. Check this. Does the Senate have to approve the president's personal physician? I don't think they do, because he doesn't make any policy decisions. But double check that one for me just to make sure. While everyone is talking about Epstein, and it deserves to be talked about, absolutely deserves to be talked about, why everyone does not have to be approved by the Senate. Okay, if O'Connor is making decisions on behalf of the President of the United States, it violates the 25th Amendment of the Constitution, it violates Article 2 of the United States Constitution, and it also violates legal precedent on how individuals are appointed and confirmed by the Senate. So he should be held in contempt. You don't get to Fifth Amendment away from that. No, this isn't, did you steal from the candy store? This is, are you one of the individuals who acted as the President of the United States of America? And while there may not be a definitive paper trail of, yes, today I am the President, Joe Biden, there are means that we can find based on conversations and perhaps security footage that exists around the Situation Room, for example, that might show Jill Biden conferring with O'Connor about matters that have absolutely nothing to do with the care of her dear sweet corpse. And that matters to the American people. And for those who might suggest, well, why does it matter? Well, you're going to find out soon enough, because James Comer, he ain't taking no for an answer on this one. James Comer is pissed and has a right to be. Now, there's a lot more to discuss today, of course. Harmeet Dillon announced that the United States is suing the state of California over Title IX violations. It's a very good thing.
Hi, everyone. Today, the United States Department of Justice filed suit against California for allowing boys to participate in girls' high school sports in violation of Title IX, one of the important federal civil rights statutes that we administer here at the Department of Justice.
Harmeet Dillon is fantastic. She is one of the best pickups by this administration. And I will say this, not just because she's a good friend of the Daily Signal, the outlet which I work, but she delivers on promises. And we're going to talk about that up next. Don't go anywhere. It's the Tony Kinnett Cast here on the Daily Signal.
Is the Tony Kinnett Cast.
It started with the whisper, and now it's when I kissed her.
Thought you'd like that. Everybody talks. Okay, we've not put it off, but let's talk about Jeffrey Epstein. I took an extra day on this particular issue before I delivered some of my first thoughts on it. Now, I want to make this clear right off the top of the bat. I always promise on the show to be 100% transparent with you. Number one, because there are so many things rustling around in my head, I could not possibly keep alternative narrative straight. That is my number one compulsion, to be very honest and open with you. Number two, if I don't know something, in the interest of being transparent, I'm going to tell you I don't know something. Number three, if I get something wrong, I'm going to tell you that too. I have made corrections before. In the show, right before we got started in the pre-live stream, I said hawkery instead of falconry because it's been a long day. And yes, hawkery is not correct. The proper term is falconry. I have no problem admitting when I am incorrect. The reason that I waited on Jeffrey Epstein, this whole thing, is for two reasons. Number one, because I'm going to be honest, as a broadcaster, it is really a nerve-wracking thing to talk about this. All of my colleagues and friends and competitors in the broadcasting spheres, some of them are way out over their skis on both sides of this right now. Both in complete and utter trust of Pam Bondi and what's coming out of the Trump administration, and in deciding that this is, finally, we have the smoking gun of the secret Jewish Mossad super duper conspiracy theory deluxe supreme. And they're bringing on wackadoodles onto their shows and making dual co-interview shows with really unsavory characters. I'm not going to do either of those things. I'm going to try to thread the needle so that you guys appreciate it? No. I'm going to tell you exactly what I'm getting from this, what my problems are, and, God willing, it's consistent with how I have covered this whole mess so far. The second reason that I've waited to cover this is because there's, from really what I would guess, is a lot more left to come out. The outrage on this particular rollout of the Jeffrey Epstein investigation decision, the documents that are going along with it, and just the general optics have been so awful. The backlash to this has been so immense. I guarantee you that we've not seen the last of this from the Trump administration. If I had to guess, that realistically, based on the evidence presented, that President Trump, after he got done saying that he was really not a fan of, while talking about Texas having to deal with the Epstein thing that Bondi botched, that he's probably going to go back and say, listen to me, we're going to get this right. You're going to get it solved. Otherwise, heads are going to roll. Maybe to Qatar, maybe to Gaza. No one will know where your head is, but it won't be here. That's what I think that Trump likely went behind and did. So, the Department of Justice released a memo on July, what was this? The day they specifically released it 2 days ago. And they said, as a part of a commitment to transparency, the DOJ and the FBI have conducted an exhaustive review of investigative holdings related to Jeffrey Epstein. To ensure the review was thorough, the FBI conducted digital searches of its databases, hard drives, network drives, as well as physical searches of the squad areas. To grandmother's house we go. We passed go. We didn't collect $200. We looked everywhere. Carmen Sandiego we found, not the stuff to pin down the third-party actors for Jeffrey Epstein. And the DOJ proceeded to review and assess and rule that the systemic review systematic review, revealed no incriminating client list. And then everyone proceeded to lose their minds. And the reason that they proceeded to lose their minds was in part very justifiably so, because Kash Patel and Vice President Vance and Attorney General Pam Bondi had made it very clear that there was a client list, an Epstein list that has been ingrained into the mind of the public via multiple reports, by memery, and yes, by Hollywood, because every American believes that every single mobster on earth has like a secret black book that they write every crime they've ever committed in. And so when you have all of that rolling in together, everyone is expecting a neat little black book with unicorns and hearts on it that says Jeffrey Epstein's little child trafficking journal. And this was made explicitly clear by statements that Bondi made earlier this year.
DOJ may be releasing the list of Jeffrey Epstein's clients. Will that really happen?
It's sitting on my desk right now to review. That's been a directive by President Trump. I'm reviewing that. I'm reviewing JFK files, MLK files. That's all in the process of being reviewed because that was done at the directive of the president from all of these agencies.
So have you seen anything that you said, oh my gosh?
Not yet.
Okay, so Bondi, that was one of the times that Bondi got in front of the camera and said, there's this list, it's on my desk. Now, Bondi has since backtracked and said, well, what I really meant was the entire investigation was on my desk. No, you did not mean that. You made a mistake in what you said. Because all the way back through, since Epstein was arrested initially, and the primary victim that has testified and alleged there was a sex trafficking network, there is one victim which has brought out a lot of allegations that Epstein had trafficked a bunch of people and whored them out, pimped them out to various powerful people. Now, are there a lot of issues with this individual's testimony? Yes. Is this individual completely trustworthy? I mean, in the legal sense, I'm not qualified to make that case. I'm not. I've looked through the testimonies and some of the stuff, I'm supposed to tell you sounds credible, looks credible. Some of it doesn't look credible. I'm a former science teacher from Indiana who knows a lot about U.S. history and law, but regarding the intricacies of whether or not an individual is justifiable or reliable in some type of a case or testimony, that's not my area of expertise. That's not. There are a lot of pundits out there right now who are telling you the deep ins and outs of why certain things are credible, why they're not, which elements changed, which elements didn't change. Did elements of her story change? Yes. Does that always indicate that the individual, the victim, is lying? No. So, what do we take from that? Well, regardless of whether or not you believe right now that the Trump administration is participating in an active cover-up, which you are 100% justified to believe, or whether you believe that maybe there really wasn't anything at all and it was just Jeffrey Epstein who was receiving services from Ghislaine Maxwell and that he committed a lot of horrible sexual crimes and abused, close to 1,000 children on his own at that island, and he wasn't pimping them out, which, based on a lot of evidence, is also a thing that you absolutely can believe. Either way, there are two things that are verifiably and objectively true. Verifiably and objectively true. Number one, the optics for the Trump administration on this and this alone look terrible. They look horrible. They're awful. Why? Because it was oversold. It was oversold. You never, ever, ever do this. Going up into the campaign, you had individuals who are pundits, who are activists, who are perhaps former attorney generals in certain states, who suggested there is a client list. They've got the black book out there. I know it's out there. We're going to get in there and we're going to reveal it to the American people because James Comey's daughter is sitting there and holding on to the diary and holding on to it closely. And so it's one of us, we're going to walk in there and flip the switch because the whole FBI is in on it. Okay. And then when they got in, they could have said, we're looking into this right now. We don't know whether or not the things that we asserted during the campaign are true, but we're looking into it. And they didn't do that. They said, we're looking into this, and oh, gee, golly whiz, there's a lot of stuff here. Thousands of kids. Just it's all horrible and terrible. And then when it came out, there maybe didn't, there wasn't a bunch of stuff for them to show, at least according to their statements. Well, you're in a really tight spot. We're going to talk about that on the live stream side. Radio crew will catch you in a second. It's the Tony Kinnett Cast. So they bring a bunch of influencers to the White House, which anytime the word influencers enters the conversation, it's a very, very bad decision. Why? Well, because the idea that influencers helped the president of the United States win the election. By the way, I have been to some of these influencer conferences. A lot of these influencers I'm friends with. I am. Do I think that they should have been brought to the White House and given a binder that says the Epstein files in bold red lettering and then underneath it, phase 1, and then like a picture behind it of Morpheus from The Matrix? No. And they all went out and took their little photo shoots, and we looked through the files, and guess what we found? It was stuff that everyone already had, and it embarrassed the influencers, and it embarrassed the administration. And I said at the time, because I was one of the people who, despite a little bit of blowback from the administration, I came out and said, this is a horrible call. Who did this? Well, that was a dumb thing to do, to release a bunch of binders. And to this day, in the New Yorker, in New York Magazine, I am cited as one of the conservatives who said that this was a very horrible way to roll out anything that was just a really bad decision. And I said, someone needs to be fired over it. The comm staffer who said, hey guys, let's bring the influencers and give them binders. Yeah, no, didn't work for Mitt Romney, ain't gonna work for you. So what do you do after that? Well, the proper thing to do, as I said, is you look at the materials and you say, we're actively investigating this. We just wanted to let people know we're trying to give them everything that we can give them as they have it. Did they do that? No. Bondi went on Fox and said, they're on my desk. And then Kash Patel and Bondi had this weird back and forth over, oh, there are FBI offices that are deleting files and maybe they're going after, who knows? And requests were made for comments and from the Southern New York FBI office, who provided evidence that, dude, we're not deleting anything. Florida hasn't been deleting anything. What are you talking about? And so again, the opportunity to treat Americans like adults was on the table. Did Bondi and her office take it? Nope. So that's number one. They botched this. And so now, by the way, when President Trump gets up in front of the country and now has to deal with this, you say, oh, well, maybe it's a cover-up. Again, I think there is not enough evidence yet to show me whether there was an active cover-up or whether or not the DOJ is telling the truth and they oversold it wildly. Those of you who play video games, you'll know this is like an annual thing. Every single video game company lies to you about a new game coming out that's going to be able to do everything ever, and it does nothing that it says it's going to do. Being oversold is like the standard in American marketing and corporate media. And it turns out when you hire someone to run comms for the DOJ that comes from that sector of the American economy and market share, they do the same stupid stuff. But alas, that's number one. The optics are terrible. Number two, some of the things being alleged right now are the same crazy conspiracies in reverse. So right now, people are saying things that I agree. I understand the scorn. I am part of the people that feel as though we were lied to either in the optics of it or the results of it. We don't know yet. We just don't know yet. However, the argument that we have a lot of evidence already, and so the wackadoodles are coming out to play, like, well, if Ghislaine Maxwell is in prison for 20 years for trafficking children to all of these people, then is she in jail for nothing now? You can read Maxwell's actual court case from start to finish online. That's not what she's in jail for. She is in jail for a series of crimes that involve pimping kids to Epstein. It's explicitly stated. She's not in prison. Now, maybe, did she do that? Maybe. Even likely. But is that what she's in jail for? No. We're going to talk about this some more here on the air in a couple of seconds. Don't go anywhere. It's the Tony Kinnett Cast. We got to pick up the radio crew.
This is the Tony Kinnett Cast on 93 WIBC.
I promise that you lied to me from Return of the Mac. I promise that wasn't intended, but that is fitting. So to bring the radio crew up to speed from what the live stream and I were talking about, the optics of this look genuinely terrible, and it was completely and totally avoidable. Completely and totally avoidable. Now, everyone has decided already that's not fair. I apologize. A lot of people have decided already they know exactly what is going on, and they're going to reveal to you the deep, dark secrets of what's going on. Do they happen to be the same people or a lot of the same people that just so happen to be wrong after they make a lot of assertions, like Laura Loomer. Yup. Laura Loomer gets out in front of everyone and makes a lot of really stupid calls that are wrong. They are wrong. They are proven wrong within a half an hour. And immediately ran out, well, actually, this is all because Pam Bondi's a Scientologist. Oh my God, Chandler Bing. You don't have to do that. Now, the facts of the case are, Bondi was very much liked by a group of Scientologist donors because as Attorney General, she allowed Scientology to be one of the groups in Florida that received religious protections along with Catholics and Protestants and Jews and Muslims and Hindus, etc. And so they donated to her. Laura Loomer decided that is evidence that she's a Scientologist. No, there's no evidence that suggests that. Again, is there a conspiracy afoot? Maybe. Could be. Do we have the evidence for that right now? The hard, objective evidence that proves it, that locks it into place? No, we don't. And I'm not going to sit here and pretend to you that I, the brilliant Tony Kinnett, is here with the deep details. No, but I do have reading comprehension skills. And I'm going to tell you what things I do and don't know. Now, maybe there is an actual serious cover-up afoot. Someone in the DOJ has hid something, obscured something. But we don't have the evidence of this yet. This is for the House of the United States to assert, to bring people to testify and to make public. Now, here's what that's going to take. What that's going to take is revealing information about the victims. You had the chance as the DOJ, you had the chance as the FBI to do your level of obscuring and release details. Now it's too late. Now it's too late. Now it is going to be essential that the victims' information is revealed to the public, and some of those are brought to testify before Congress for this to be settled. That's it. That's it. And the primary witness that we spoke of, she committed suicide like a year or so ago after a really deep, dark, publicly documented turn into depression and insanity, which a lot of people find suspicious. And they are right to find that suspicious. There are some other things that people aren't reading on this. For example, the hallway camera thing. So I even talked about this on the Top News in 10 because some of the individuals from the administration said that they provided footage of Epstein's cell. So they have like this 10-hour video of Jeffrey Epstein's cell. And everyone said, wait a minute, hang on, hold up. Didn't you guys say that, or at least didn't the 2019 and then the 2022 DOJ say that, well, he committed suicide, but there wasn't a camera that was on. They were like malfunctioning and there weren't any guards around. What's going on here? And it turns out when you have members of the Department of Justice or the FBI or a comm staffer or an influencer or whoever that doesn't actually read the footage that was released, or you have a senior official that doesn't know the footage that is released, is not footage of Epstein's cell. It's not. It is the footage of the hallway leading into that part of the prison. A one-way in, one-way out place where if anyone walked into that wing of the prison, you would see them. And then there's a minute of footage missing, and a lot of people are skeptical about that because they didn't mention this when the footage was released. Okay, how to rebuild institutional trust 101. Step number 1, stop saying stupid things. Number 2, start over-explaining. I want every single detail. Hire triple the amount of comm staffers. Get individuals in there who actually know how to communicate things that others are going to find very suspicious. You have to over-explain. Otherwise, people are right to ask these questions because you have senior members of the administration who are saying, oh, well, here's the footage of Jeffrey Epstein's cell. That's not what it's the footage of. And you can tell that, by the way, because the footage or the photos that CNN released in 2022, 2023 shows that Jeffrey Epstein's cell door is a different color. The wall paint scheme is different. It's a solid wall, not like a half-stripe Wayne Scott painted wall. There's a telephone next to his cell and like this weird mechanical fixture on the other side that's not in the video. Again, those are questions that people will have. You can do all of this, by the way. My God, get a Squarespace website and put it up there with as many captions and labels and things. Squarespace doesn't sponsor the show, by the way. That's just first what popped into my mind. Just put something up that over-explains it. My God, how many people in this economy, in this general American market, have infographics businesses? Have some people make some infographics. Rebuild trust. Quit pretending like the FBI deserves my trust. They don't. Quit pretending the DOJ deserves my trust. They don't. And we're going to talk about that, by the way, with Alex Sawyer, with the targeted indictments that occurred against Donald Trump over the last couple of years. All institutional trust in our legal system is gone. It is gone. And it has some very, very serious consequences. So as far as my ending thoughts here, and we've taken longer on this than maybe I had planned, but I think that it's worth you guys just getting the full-on bleep it, we'll do it live, Bill O'Reilly style of my takes on this. My two takeaways are, number one, regardless of whether or not there was or was not a cover-up, the optics on this are terrible, and the DOJ did not learn from the Binder release. They did not learn. You have people running out there going, oh yeah, we've got the list, it's right on my desk, we've just got to sift through all of the child porn. Okay, no, you didn't have a list. Could you have spent the last couple of months, if everything you're saying is true, saying, guys, there are not actually any major RICO racketeering trafficking cases in which there's like a black book. The closest thing that exists in history to this was the Al Capone ledger, which led to him being charged on income tax evasion. Not even the crimes themselves. Real criminals don't sit down and go, ah, yes, here's my black book of everything I've ever done wrong and my client list. Now the FBI is actually going to have to release a most likely suspected third parties that may or may not have had. You're going to have to release things that people are immediately going to sue. And now you're going to have a lot of institutional chaos in the meantime. And you did it to yourself because you didn't spend 2 months doing things the right way. And now I'm going to be real with you. Trump has a reason to be pissed. And it looks bad for him too. It does. So when Trump responds this way, as he did to a reporter today, to Peter Doocy, you're getting some wild takes coming out of this that are very justified, albeit whether or not they're right or wrong.
One of the biggest ones is whether he ever worked for an American or foreign intelligence agency. The former Labor Secretary, who was Miami U.S. Attorney Alex Costa, he allegedly said that he did work for an intelligence agency. So could you resolve whether or not he did? And also, could you say why there was a minute missing from the jailhouse tape?
Okay, so first of all, real quick here, this question the reporter asks is incorrect. According to the court documents, this individual that formerly worked for the first Trump administration did not allegedly say that, or at least not alleged to the court, that Epstein was a foreign agent. That's not what happened. Someone who worked for him said on an off-the-record, like vague accusation that, oh, I remember him saying that one time. That's a secondary or a tertiary source. So it's not a loaded question, it's the journalist's fault, but that should be stated going into this.
Yeah, sure. If I
could I just interrupt for 1 second? Are you still talking about Jeffrey Epstein? This guy's been talked about for years. You're asking, we have Texas, we have this, we have all of the things. And are people still talking about this guy, this creep? That is unbelievable. Do you want to waste the time and do you feel like answering?
I don't mind.
Okay, so Bondi's like, well, I don't mind answering, and then Trump cuts her off, and then Trump chews out the reporter. Does this look good? No, but I'm going to make this clear. Donald Trump has a lot going on right now. Now, is this justification for anything? No. Two things can be true at once. Number one, when you have people who are supposed to do a job, and now you have to deal with the mess that was caused, I can tell you, I'm honestly, I understand why Trump is annoyed at Bondi and is kind of cutting her off, while also trying to say things are fine. And Trump, in his classic way of just blunderously going out there and saying things, knocking things over like a bull in a china shop, Trump does this often, like with a lot of things. Number two, also, I'm going to be real. If you're talking about Texas, and as Trump talked about else, like this is a cabinet meeting in which there's a lot of updates from the entire country coming around, not just Epstein. I can understand him saying like, oh my gosh, can we not talk about Texas or the attacks on people in ICE, which we're going to talk about after our interview with Alex Sawyer? Can we not get to this? We're going to talk about some of those things over on the live stream. Radio crew will catch you in just a couple of minutes. It's the Tony Kinnett Cast here on the Daily Signal. And it really should be said. It really deserves to be pointed out that there are things in the Trump administration right now that are kind of worth discussing with the media. There are. It's not just what's going on with Epstein that Trump wants to discuss, and I don't blame him. So from Marco Rubio, here's a couple of other updates from the administration.
Well, it's just going through a list here, Mr. President, and I think the Vice President's pointed out to the great team you have, and all these achievements that have happened domestically. But you think about it, under your leadership, we prevented and ended a war between India and Pakistan. NATO's now at 5% for the first time ever, the highest numbers ever. A peace deal between the Democratic Republic of Congo and Rwanda. A 12-day war that ended with an American operation that we're the only country in the world that could have done. Hopefully, pretty soon, a peace deal between Azerbaijan and Armenia. The entire Middle East and the infrastructure of it has the potential now to change because of Syria and Lebanon, and it hasn't even been 6 months. Sure. It hasn't even been 6 months.
So it's understandable. It is. It is. And again, there are people out there right now who are saying that this is Trump evading the whatever. Guys, how many times over the last couple of years have you seen Trump personally and deeply involved in certain aspects of his administration? When have you seen it? How many times has Trump said, oh, you're telling me that for the first time because I put people in positions of power and then I tell them go do? Because oftentimes when Trump tweets about something or posts it on Truth Social, there have already been updates on other things. Again, you have to look at the entire picture. There are a lot of people whom I respect saying things that are way out over their skis right now that are just not verifiable in any way, shape, or form. They want to get out. They want to get the clicks. They want the really nice, easy soundbite in 2 to 4 minutes that's going to get them that network TV hit. It's just not worth it. It's not. It is far better to hang on just a second, or to quote Dan Bongino in case, hold, and wait for the full picture. The optics is very obvious. You can make a judgment on the optics right now because of the backlash, because of the response. Now, those things said, I'm getting texts and emails. So I do want to point out that there are a couple of things that are also not really wanting to be talked about. These would be House Minority Leader Hakeem Jeffries. House Minority Leader Hakeem Jeffries also doesn't want to talk right now because what he has to be responsible for is extra big yikes bad. Extra big yikes bad. So House Minority Leader Hakeem Jeffries has an entire party that is currently calling for the blood of ICE agents. According to articles that are coming out as fast as the publications can print them, House Democrats are telling organizations like, what was it, Politico, that they're ready to go out, and even if they get shot by ICE, they're going to go and defend to the last man, and all manner of extremely crazy things. And I think we do have the clip of Hakeem doing his darndest to evade. Let's see if we can pull that up. I don't know if we have time to play it, so we're actually going to cut over to our interview with Alex Sawyer from the Washington Times on the reason why all of this institutional trust has fallen apart regarding the FBI and the DOJ. Then we'll come back during some bonus tonos to talk about this. It's the Tony Kinnett Cast here on The Daily Signal.
This is the Tony Kinnett Cast on 93 WIBC.
Welcome back to the Tony Kinnett Cast here on the Daily Signal, nationally syndicated first on 93 WIBC. We're joined by Alex Sawyer over from the Washington Times, and we're going to talk a little bit about some of the lawless lawfare, not just the lawless lawfare book that, of course, she wrote, which is linked down in the description, but the lawsuits that continue all the time because, God forbid, we have prosecutors and judges that do their bleeping jobs. Alex, how's it going?
Good. Thank you so much for having me. And as you were talking, I was thinking about how, in Washington, we've gone quite a few months without a special counsel. I'm just thinking it's about time. We love our special counsels. So
that's right. I mean,
kind of watching the clock, waiting to see when that's going to pop up. I was talking previously with an interview, and I was saying, well, if we're going to have a special counsel for the auto pen, we should also have a special counsel for X and Y and Z. And, I think some people cheerlead that. And then on the flip side, It's like, how much does that cost the taxpayer and how much real results do we get? Do you remember? Then we had John Durham, the special counsel that was supposed to look into the origins of the whole Russia probe. So it was like a special counsel into a special counsel. And that totaled something around $40 million for tax.
40 million. Wait. For one of the special counsels or both of the special counsels?
So it was 32 point something for Mueller. And then I think it was like 7 point something for John Durham. So there's your 40 figure.
Now let's jump back just a bit here, because you talked about the stepping stone, this jumping off point from the counsels to the impeachments, from the impeachments to the indictments, and that as that goes. It's a popular theory on my show that the left goes way too far, way too fast. That's what they do. They do this with everything. And since you were in the courtroom, specifically in Atlanta, in Fulton County, you're watching this stuff play out live, things that I didn't have time at the time to spend all of my day watching. I was amazed when I would see your reporting for the Washington Times that the statements that were used by the prosecution were never, we think Mr. Trump has committed some crimes and we're just here to make sure that the law is upheld. It's always, this man is Hitler and he's coming to poison our crops and our water supply and he's going to burn down all of the Atlanta homes and we got to stop this man. And it, at least to me, looking from the outside in, it seemed that this was so comically overdone. How could this be taken as a justice on the ground situation? Was it like that through the whole trial?
Yeah, it's interesting that you say overdone. I thought about calling my book Overkill because of the sheer volume of criminal cases, really, like all cases. I talk about the E. Jean Carroll case. I talk about the Colorado case looking to boot Trump off the ballot, if you remember that one. There's just so much litigation, but the 4 criminal ones were really, I think, at the heart of problems I saw with the First Amendment. I'll get into that in a moment. But when you're talking about Fani Willis down in Georgia, Alvin Bragg in Manhattan, Letitia James, the Attorney General in New York, a lot of their comments, and in fact, I opened up my Letitia James chapter with statements she made while campaigning for her election. And it's like, I'm going to shine a bright light into all of his dealings. I mean, these are people who campaign on getting Trump. And so they felt like they delivered on that promise. But if you have the last name Trump, how do you ever feel like justice is blind when it's coming for you in that instance? It's not. And one of the key threads that also kind of overlapped from some of these was the media coverage was terrible. And I wondered, does reporters just not understand the law, or is there a narrative that they are looking at ahead of this election?
Definitely, to answer that question, it's the apathy. You and I know that there's such an apathy towards digging through the narrative to get to the truth in our field.
Yeah.
So many of our colleagues on the left don't even pretend to care that there might be another angle to the story.
Well, there should have been media that was challenging some of these gag orders that came down in these criminal courts. For example, if you're a criminal defendant, I think of anyone in America that deserves to have a First Amendment right to speak, it's someone that's looking at losing their liberty. And that was taken away from Donald Trump. He was gagged in these 4 criminal cases. And, he did about from my research in this book, he did about 90 campaign rallies while under gag orders from criminal courts. And that's just really unprecedented. That's un-American. If you care about the First Amendment, if you care about political speech, it's problematic. That's
another word that's become so overused that it's lost all meaning, unprecedented.
Yeah.
But that really is something that is unprecedented, to do 90 campaign rallies amidst 4 of these criminal trials is bonkers. It's insane. I really want to go back to this going way too far, way too fast, because a lot of these criminal trials are very different from the original document case down in Florida. So the Democrats decided they were going to, shove the crowbar into this Pandora's box and say, okay, we're going to go after Trump for having all of these documents that he wasn't supposed to have. And we're going to get really into to quote Justice Jackson, legalese, and suggest, Trump had no authority to do this. We're going to raid Melania's underwear drawer.
Right.
Insane. That's not an exaggeratory statement. And then they decided that one criminal case, their strongest, still really weak, but their strongest of the 4 cases, as you've articulated before, that wasn't enough for him. So they ended up opening all of these. He's also inciting rebellion. We've got to ban him from the ballot in Colorado. We're going to make one federal felony, 34 state felonies. It's so bewildering how they didn't see themselves getting ahead over their own skis to watch it all fall down because they made it a mockery.
And I talked to a pollster kind of on that point, like what was he hearing from voters throughout that time?
Because that's where everyone's focus was the pollsters going into these elections.
Right. And so Robert Cahaley, as who I spoke to, and he said, they were really lost. Like you hear in the Georgia case, the word racketeering, they think, what does that have to do with, politics? The hush money case in Manhattan, they think all celebrities pay hush money. So what's really the big problem? It just was a total misread by the Democrats. And whether they were moving too far, too fast, or didn't care, it was obviously the election results speak for themselves. I'm not sure, though, to bring us, to present day, if they really understand how big of a mistake it was. We heard some talk about wanting to move towards impeachment again after the Iran strikes. That it pulled back a little bit there, maybe realizing that wasn't the right tactic either. We've seen so much litigation against this president's agenda. And
Alex, hold on. Are you suggesting that AOC, the brilliant representative from New York City, doesn't often have the right tactics? Are you serious?
Yeah, I think that she is a very interesting politician to watch. I think she has a big future ahead of her. And
she does. The tactics are just sometimes, again, she kind of gets wrapped up in her own future, right? I mean, because she does in fact have some tact, and I've heard her speak.
You're hitting on something interesting with her. It's similar to what some people have said, I think about Donald Trump. And that is, Tony, that like what she does and her tactics seem to work for her, but I don't think it necessarily always works across her party. Right?
So maybe primary strategy as opposed to general strategy kind of situations.
Yeah, and you know what? I think that's what a lot of criticism was. People said that about Donald Trump, and 8 years later, look, he's a dominant force in the party.
Well, yeah, really, because in the weirdest and most insane world that this goes back to the point, and I promise I'm not just trying to be self-serving. I think that your book on lawless lawfare draws a beautiful picture of this exact phenomenon regarding lawfare. And I'd love to see a follow-up that you do on perhaps the judicial cases from the injunctions around the country.
Oh, yeah. I had to turn to that point. I turned in my manuscript right after Inauguration Day, like in February. So if you think about it, there could have been there could be, like you said, a whole nother lawfare book written from the aspect of now, with Trump in office.
Dang it. I've got to name this theory and trademark it before you finish the second book.
It's something I've been thinking of, but it's a crazy number of lawsuits. I don't know if you and I have spoken about it before, or it's been something that I've mentioned in some passing interviews. But the Article 3 Foundation actually has an interesting chart, a tracker of all the federal lawsuits going on. It's like 266 that they've tracked. There's actually more than that if you count like individual, like people with illegals,
different parties, that end up using the same courts.
So they looked at some of the major ones. It's 266, and I think of that, like a third is over immigration policy.
Yep.
So that's an interesting group to go to if you're a listener that's trying to keep track of this. Yeah.
So I think that I do remember we were co-paneling on a TV hit, if I remember quite right, because you mentioned that stat and I had to look away from the camera, which, by the way, for those watching, you're not supposed to do. You're supposed to, stay focused on the camera, on the focus. And I looked away because I thought 260 something. My God. It's insane to watch. But again, this all goes back to moving way too far, way too fast. And now you look at congresswomen like the Kool-Aid man, body slamming people, Representative McIver. You see the lawsuits that may be surrounding mayors, past or future.
Right.
And the perhaps the pearl clutching moment of, oh no, they're going after this. Once you've gone after the president for everything with the amp turned up to 11, he's Hitler. We got to stop him. We're all going to die. As Representative Sarah Tim McBride said out of Delaware, oh heavens, we must stop this mass murderer. All of a sudden, an indictment on a representative? It kind of loses its savor. And the left does this to themselves every single time. Harry Reid doing this to Mitch McConnell in 2013 with the nuclear option is why Trump was able to appoint 3 Supreme Court justices and likely 2 more.
Yes.
They always do this.
And it's a dangerous pattern that leads us to people always ask, why is legislation always not bipartisan? And it's because they keep doing these types of tactics to each other, the two parties, really.
Man, why doesn't anyone want to work with this senator?
Exactly.
Oh, it's because he flew down to El Salvador to have margs with a wife beater and then said everyone who doesn't support me is a Nazi. I can't believe I don't want to co-sponsor a bill
That
with Senator Chris Van Hollen.
It's so dangerous. It makes it so they don't want to work together on the Hill. They can't, because they fire up their base so much that the people don't want to see them work together.
Until Jasmine Crockett's actually threatening to throw hands in the House Oversight Committee.
Yeah, and that type of rhetoric soon graduates to what we saw: assassination attempts against the president, against Justice Kavanaugh. It's just
federal agents everywhere across the country now.
The border agents, the
10,
ICE
11
agents.
person plots.
Yep, it's very dangerous where we are.
Thanks for sticking around with us a little bit longer today.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it, and I enjoy talking about it.
Alex Sawyer over from the Washington Times and author of Lawless Lawfare. We'll have a link in the description just for that for you to pick it up. We'll be back. Don't go anywhere. It's the Tony Kinnett Cast.
The Tony Kinnett Cast on 93 WIBC.
Welcome back to the Tony Kinnett Cast. All right, let's talk a little bit about the last of the not wanting to talk. That comes from Hakeem Jeffries, who you would think, given that he just spoke for 8 hours on the House floor at the rate of William Shatner on depressants, that he might be okay with getting out in front of the camera and talking. No. And the reason he's not really enjoying getting in front of the camera and speaking is, well, the members of his party, who he's supposed to be over in the House of Representatives, are currently saying some of the dumbest things possible. Again, we talked about this on the Top News in 10. According to articles from Politico, as well as several other sources, House Democrats are currently inundated with calls from their constituents, encouraging them to storm the White House, saying that they're willing to fight and die and kill ICE, and they want bloodshed. Here's Hakeem Jeffries completely dodging this.
Zoran Mamdani came out of nowhere with less money, less fame, beat the Democratic establishment, beat Mario Cuomo. I should say Andrew Cuomo, son of Mario Cuomo, known in New York. Is that a good thing for the Democratic Party?
Well, he ran a tremendous race. He outworked the opposition. He out-communicated the opposition. He out-organized the opposition. And I think one of the things that was key about what he was able to do is that he ran directly at the issue of affordability. Across every age demographic, it's the number one issue in the city of New York. Now, he articulated a very provocative platform in that regard. I look forward to sitting down and talking to him about his plans to actually implement that platform to deal with some of the challenges that the communities that I face are dealing with in terms of gentrification and displacement, and a whole host of other issues that I would normally talk about with any Democratic nominee, and certainly we'll talk about with our particular Democratic nominee in the context of the mayoral race. I think one of the things that we'll continue to try to do at the national level is to lean in aggressively to Donald Trump's failure to...
So he's evading on Mamdani, and then he gets asked, well, what about ICE? What about that? And he dodges on this exact same way.
Now, some Democrats, amid the criticisms of ICE right now due to these ICE raids, have started calling for defunding ICE. Do you think that's effective going into the midterms, and do you support those calls?
Well, I definitely think that, we need aggressive oversight as it relates to the overly aggressive behavior that we've seen, from ICE, from the Department of Homeland Security. It's not what the American people actually, in my view, voted for. Donald Trump and Republicans promised to go after violent felons, but instead they're going after law-abiding immigrant families. And
no, I'm afraid not. First of all, they're not just going after law-abiding immigrant families. They are illegal immigrants. They're not just rounding up someone who just immigrated legally from Poland And as for, I don't think the majority of Americans support that, that's not even remotely true. I will remind you that the 4 most recent polls on the matter show that it's not going after criminals that's the moderate position to the majority of voters. Mass deportation is what the majority of voters in this country are counting on.
Deport all immigrants who are here illegally, 55% of the New York Times, Marquette 64%, CBS News 57%, ABC News with a slightly different question, 56%.
It's just not going to get better for them. Now, what does Hakeem Jeffries have to avoid? Well, he has people like Jasmine Crockett. Good old Jasmine Crockett. Gosh, we sure love her speaking in public. Of course, you know the horrible situation in Central Texas with the flooding. Some of that also in New Mexico as well, I believe. Also some really horrible situations they're dealing over there. So Jasmine Crockett decided as a representative of Dallas, she looked in the mirror and asked a very important question. How can I make this tragedy about me? And here's what answered.
So anyway, I just wanted to jump on because my heart is truly heavy for all of these families. The sad part is I think that my heart is going to carry a level of weight that will continue to weigh me down as we have to continue to do our best to survive an administration that literally is against us. An administration that is doing everything, in my mind, to hurt us and not help us.
Slit my wrists. I sure do enjoy listening to Jasmine Crockett. My gosh. I'm just, the real victim is me, carrying around this deeply heavy heart. And the Trump administration, they don't like me and they hate me. And so we're just going to have to keep on fighting on until you see that good morning shooting on a star. I hate it. Jasmine Crockett is like, what if the worst person you knew was doing an audition for Little Orphan Annie? And she's awful. And by the way, not just in that, she's also, again, at the same time, here's Jasmine Crockett about political violence. Again, you will recall that there were just a crew of 10 plus 1 who were arrested in conjunction with a terror plot to ambush and kill ICE agents, as well as another guy who shot an ICE agent in the neck, and other domestic terrorism incidents that are happening around the country right now, targeting Jews, targeting Christians, targeting straight people, targeting ICE and law enforcement. So, of course, Jasmine Crockett gets out there and tries setting the record straight, about as straight as a wet piece of spaghetti.
The violence doesn't come from Democrats, just to be clear. I mean, obviously anyone can be a criminal, but it is MAGA. It's specifically MAGA faction. Like, I don't think traditional Republicans are getting engaged in all of this, but like, even when we look at, and they don't talk about the assassination attempts anymore.
Even when they look at and they don't talk about the assassination attempts anymore.
That took place with Donald Trump, but these were Trump supporters.
They were not Trump supporters. That is a completely debunked garbage lie. ABC News, of all the outlets, is the organization that fact-checked that and said, no, there's no evidence that either of the two individuals or the third individual who made it halfway to assassinating Donald Trump, neither of the two dedicated assassination attempts on Trump were committed by Trump supporters. No.
As well as this most recent situation, they tried to flip it and say, oh, the leftists are, I'm like, this doesn't even make sense, right? But
again, open calls for the attempted murder of individuals in federal law enforcement because you're calling them, Nazis setting up concentration camps. Here's Pramila Jayapal of Washington making that clear on Joy Reid's show.
On the DHS part, this is really important because this big bad betrayal bill is not disconnected from what we're seeing with immigration on the streets. It actually supercharges ICE's activities in terrorizing local communities, in kidnapping and disappearing and deporting immigrants across this country.
Again, first of all, illegal immigrants are being deported, not immigrants. Number two, I would like to just point out very clearly here, this is inciting language. When you suggest that the Nazis are coming to get rid of you and put you in concentration camps, that is going to rally the mentally ill to lash out violently.
Right now, for ICE detention, we spend about $3.5 billion. The big bad betrayal bill.
Also, just as a side note here, the Democrat alliteration message, every time there's some kind of a bill out there, they're like the big bad, big stinky bill, the big bad, boisterous, bodacious bill. It's not Guy Fieri naming a dish. Okay, can you stop it? It's elementary teacher cat mom nonsense.
Increases that number to 45 billion. 45 billion from 3.5 billion. So across the board, and then there's separate money for ICE agents, for any number of pieces of the transportation, the deportation, all of that. So it is really essentially saying if whatever you see right now, Joy, multiply that by 10 to 12 times.
That's just straight from Megamind, by the way. It's like, I want you to think of the worst, evilest thing you can imagine and multiply it by 6. Amazing. I love it. She did, by the way, say what she thought about, some of these attempts to officially obstruct federal law enforcement and break the law, which do in fact result in violence. Like, again, the active riots, which are currently ongoing in San Diego and San Francisco. And yes, Los Angeles.
Some of the most inspiring things have been when people encircle courtrooms and refuse to allow ICE agents in. There are all kinds of nonviolent resistance tactics that we have to use.
Okay, so nonviolent resistance tactics like encircling buildings and not letting ICE through. You do realize that when ICE then tries to get through, that gets violent, right? That's like saying, I pointed a gun at him, but in a very nonviolent fashion. I cocked it and shoved the barrel up to the temple of his skull, and he didn't like that. And then he reacted violently. He slapped my hand away. My God. Incredible. Incredible stuff. Now, this does go over to the latest string of arrests that are going around, which is essentially didn't do nothing, but the illegal immigrant tour. And we're going to have to talk about this tomorrow because we're just out of time for today. And I've got top news in 10 to make sure we get recorded for this evening. We'll see you soon. By the way, we'd love it if you joined us over on the Discord. You can find the link to that. That's where we're chatting and sharing a lot of nonsense and, suffering through the day together. And then, of course, you can also throw a little subscribe, maybe a like on the channel. That helps us out tremendously. And make sure that when my boss asks what the heck I'm doing, it's not just making jokes about Jasmine Crockett. It's getting the subscribers as well. So we'll be back tomorrow. Same great time, same great place. To quote the great Rush Limbaugh, another one in the can. It's the Tony Kinnett Cast here on the Daily Signal, nationally syndicated, first on 93 WIBC. Take care.